Hello everybody, this is BC here. I'm going to be playing the game Body Stacking Emporium, and so I'd like to tell you a bit about the nation I'm playing and the pretender design. This is going to be another Dominions Enhanced game, but I will be playing as the glorious nation of Ind. There's a lot of thoughts about Ind, a lot of different ways to take it. I'm going to assume that you haven't played Ind, so I'm going to go into a lot of detail about all their summons and stuff. Some of this is Dominion's Enhanced content. And then I'll show you the Pretender I'll be creating. So if you already know all about Ind, then go ahead and skip to halfway through and we'll talk about the Pretender. In any case, the glorious nation of Ind, Glorious Kingdom of Ind, something like that. It's got a lot going on, more than most nations, because it is very terrain specific. So the way it works is in your capital you have all these sacreds that you can recruit, and I've just played a single player game through about like 40 turns or so I could show you all the summons and stuff. But you've got these sacreds that you can recruit, everything in your capital, and then outside of your capital, everything is terrain specific. So there's this sage that you can get everywhere. He's a solid astral communion guy. There's this bishop general who's a troop leader. This archbishop who can lead more troops, but he's old. This primate king, which is a recruitable holy 3. This Abbot Magus. This guy is 2 recruitment points, cap only, with these cross paths. And then slow to recruit is his big brother, who's got an extra point of astral and access to water or nature. So those are the recruits of their mages. Then all of these troops are also sacred. So we've got this archer priest, soldier priest. These guys are kind of the bread and butter expansion troop early on. They are pretty cheap for a sacred. Their stats do not pop off the chart, but because they're so cheap and they can take your bless, they still are pretty effective. They've got their older brother here in the Mirror Guard, who've got a little more cost, but a little bit better stats. And then these Baculites, you can only recruit 2 Mirror Guards per turn, same with the Baculites. The Baculites have a little bit lower stats, but their weapon is a magic weapon, and they have standard ability. This also has Bane of Heresy, so it works especially well against enemy sacreds. You see here, Holy Points 19. The way that works is you have your base Holy Points like every nation, but then rather than +1 per 5 temples, it's +1 per 1 temple. So you can get your Holy Point limit to a ridiculous number. I'm going to be taking Sloth, so I'm not going to be leaning into that super hard, but it is something that's worth noting. And then we've got the different terrain types abound. So in plains and in plains and farmland are 2 choices. You've either got these feminies, which are basically badass women. So there's this woman knight with 20 defense skill on the top, although she is slow to recruit. This feminine sorceress, so she's got fire and astral guaranteed, plus a random in either of those. And then these lady knights who have 19 defense skill. So all in all, like I said, badasses, they've got good stats, but by the time you start getting out forts and recruiting these guys, it's kind of late for that. So you might want the sorceresses, but I wouldn't lean too much heavy into the Lady Knights because you've got other uses for your money. And you couple that with the fact that the other thing that you might get from a Plains province is these Baconia guys. And they are midgets with underwhelming stats and abilities. So here's the king. He's got 18 defense, but he's only got 8 HP, so Navigation will just rip him up. You could try him with the Midget's Revenge artifact, but overall, I don't find these guys particularly inspiring. They are cheap though, and some of the they do have strong defense and protection skills, so you could mask them up. And if you're fighting against, for example, giants or something, then you could surround them with these Peconiers. That said, I still don't think it's really worth it. They also have small siege strength because they're small people. So, and to top it off, if the Peconier weren't underwhelming enough, they get attacked every year by birds, and no one likes birds. So those are the options in Plains. In Wastes, you have these giants, and you got this guy who on the surface looks like a fantastic super combatant chassis. He's got tons of HP, lots of protection, magic resistance, good stats all around. Unfortunately, he is homesick to the tune of 30%. So you could try, if you happen to already get a wasteland fort, you could build one of these guys defensively, but overall that hope sickness basically cripples the use of these guys. And then you have these giants that you can recruit there, but again, they're also longing for home. The next terrain type is forests, and forests have some good stuff. You get these satyrs who are incredibly cheap. And they have 1.2 siege strength, so you can mask them up when you need a siege, and they'll hang in there. Their stats aren't anything to write home about, but for 7 gold, you can't complain. There's these knights here, which are okay, but then you've got the crossbowmen, and national crossbowmen, especially with decent stats overall in Middle Age, are a useful tool to have. You also get these huntresses, which are incredibly polarizing to players of Inn. Some people swear by them, some people think that they're a trap. What they do is they're cheap sources of free spawn. So each huntress can free spawn a lion. 1/4 of the lions have, 1/4 of the lions can actually be commanded. The other 3 are uncivilized. But you can get huntresses pretty cheaply and get a decent force of lions. And I wouldn't rely on the lions exclusively, but for a forest province that has not built a temple and a lab yet, because once you have a temple and a lab, you'll get the abbot sages. If you don't have a temple and a lab yet, then get some huntresses, get some free spawn. They have 0 upkeep, and they're solid troops. And then the big prize. Here in Highlands, you can also get them in caves. You've got these guys, which I've got too much unrest here, so let's start with the mages, or the commanders rather. There's this chieftain, he's meh. This shaman, also meh. But then you've got this dogfather, who's got blood and a random, so he can join a Sabbath master or communion master and give stuff to the communion, or he can totally do a turbo communion as long as you give him a ring of regen or something, because his HP is pretty good. And then you've got the bitch mother, and she's stealthy, she berserks, she's pretty tough out of the gate, and all of the cross paths you get on her are pretty excellent. So you're going to need some bitch mothers. And then the real prize from these Highlands, in addition to the bitch mothers, is the troops. And by the troops, I mean you've got a hunter that you don't really care about, although being able to do short bow shenanigans as a berserker has a bit of perks. Basically, the way this works is you can park a hunter in front of troops you want to buff, and they'll use their short bow. Flesh Eater, and then the Flesh Hunter. So this guy has 3 attacks, he's stealthy and has berserk. And then the Reaver. This guy is not stealthy, but it hits like a fucking truck. 11 protection that berserks up to 15 or so, with 3 attacks that also berserk up to high amounts. This guy can get a lot of work done. So that is why Highlands and Caves are coveted by end players everywhere. Let's talk about the unique spells, and then we will jump to the Pretender that I'll be playing. So here I've got my national summons. The first one at Conjuration, well, I skipped the Headless Man. It's kind of a cool guy. We've got this Cyclops tribe. I'm going to skip these animal spells. These aren't actually really animal nation stuff. But we've got the Cyclops tribe. Let's see, do I have any Cyclopses here? Yeah, here's some Cyclopses. These guys are basically double-statted barbarians. So, with a lot more morale. So they don't have the most protection, but they can pound through everything because these great clubs hit really hard. And they have 5 siege strength apiece. So they're a good way to get siege strength early in the game, or punch through protection heroes. Next are the Malaks, and these guys are quite useful. So this is an example of a Malak. They're all the same. 9 Astral Pearls, which is not a high price to pay, gets you this commander with Awe 4, invulnerable, some good resists, flying, and stealthy, and map move 34. So you can kit these guys out to be repel thugs, for example, fly them all over the place causing trouble, have them come out of nowhere because of stealth, and then fly them all back to a big battle where, again, they can then fly to the back and disrupt someone's mages. These guys can do a lot of work, and they're quite cheap. Let's now look at more conjurations. Next we got this Indus Worm. I didn't actually summon one of these, but they're extremely powerful siege dudes, although kind of expensive for one single worm. Birds of Splendor. These are birds that you can summon. They're both commanders. If one dies, then the other one dies too. Then this Hashmal. So let's see. Here is a Hashmal. He's similar to the Malak in that he's got Awe, invulnerable, flying. He is not stealthy, but he has a fire shield and ethereal. Unfortunately, he does not have an armor slot, so you can't really boost the protection above this native protection of 0. For that reason, I'm probably not going to be summoning many Hashmals, but they do exist. Continuing with summons, we've got the Arrow, the Ophan, and the Merkava. So we'll look at those one at a time. The Arrow, that's the Ophan, sorry. The Arrow is these guys. So now we've got a summonable Holy 3 with the same types of map move and flying stuff we've been used to. Basically an even bigger angel. These guys can do a lot of work. They're not really cut out to be super combatants, but they heal, they fly and cause trouble. A good troop to have around. Then the Ophon, so that's these guys. They do actually have protection to go along with their ethereal, which makes them pretty tough to hurt. Flame Strike has AoE, so anyone who is not fire resistance can get trampled and burnt and all sorts of good stuff. So I'll probably be making a few of these guys if it gets to that stage. And then finally, this is the tryout. Yeah, so here we got this tryout, and these guys are interesting for a couple reasons. One is that besides the angel stuff we've been used to, they have 4 different forms. So we're seeing this form here, which is Astral 4, but I can go ahead and change him, and now he's Air 4 and Fire 4. So you get access to a lot of magic with these guys. Additionally, they can be transformed, which seems counterintuitive. Like, why would you give up this chassis for a transformation? But when you transform them, you get all 16 paths of magic, or 20 if you count the priest, on one single dude. So it's definitely something to consider. Like, I could turn this guy into a golem and just have a 4 across the board golem, which is pretty neat. The other thing that this nation has a lot of is blood. So we've got 2 national blood spells, as well as all the goodies that are nation agnostic. So there's Lilith here and Release Lord of Civilization. Lilith is this girl over here, and she does her own like super combatant-y stuff with invisibility and some other goodies. But additionally, she free spawns these Liliths, which have the Dream Seduction ability, so you can send these guys around and steal people's commanders and assassinate them and stuff like that. And then we've got Lord of Civilization. These are a number of unique summons. They're Blood 9, so they're ridiculous as you'd expect. Here's an example of one of them. Tons of magic, fear, blood vengeance. There's this Corruptor ability, which I don't know if you would actually use it, because why corrupt one dude at a time when you can take out a whole army? But it's there. So these guys are pretty badass. Finally, and I'm probably missing something, but let's just say finally for now, there are Recruit Anywhere stuff. So you can always recruit these cannibal warlords, which are cheap troop leaders. They fight fine in combat, but that's not why you're recruiting them. All of my forts I'm going to be building with these guys, just because 30 gold for someone to build a fort is pretty cheap. Anywhere you've got a temple, you can get these bishops. So there's this Holy 2 and this Holy 3. Both of them have Tax Collector, Reduce Unrest natively, and Lord over Heathen Tribes. Lord over Heathen Tribes means that they can free spawn cannibals. The cannibals are pretty unpopular because even though they're free spawn, they do cost money in terms of upkeep. But later on in the game, when I have army buffs, like if I can Marble Warriors a bunch of free spawn cannibals or something like that, then that's definitely an option I'll be considering. These guys cannot free spawn as many cannibals, but you recruit them twice as fast. that said, I'll be sticking with these guys because they can also do smite. And then you've got these Cannibal Shaman Chiefs. They're bad at research, but they're good at blood hunting. They've got this random, so you get access to some neat cross paths. For example, this is my only way to get a blood astral cross path. These guys are quite solid. Alright, so that's End. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the key takeaway is get lots of money like normal, but also get lots of Highlands because the stuff that we can recruit in Highlands is pretty boss, and we're going to be doing lots of blood stuff because Ind is probably the most powerful blood nation in the Middle Age. Now, let's go and talk about my pretender for this game. So I'll just go ahead and recreate it. And one thing that I did not mention, Ind's starting sites are also a little unique. So this site maximizes order. What that means is that even if you take Turmoil 3, your capital will have Order 3. As a result, I'm going to be taking Turmoil 3 so that I can get the maximum bonus out of that ability. This site lets you scry, which is a pretty useful ability, as opposed to having to park scouts everywhere. You can, you're still going to do lots of scouting, but you can scry to pick up on key provinces as long as they're close enough. There's a bug, which I think has been patched, which let you scry anywhere, regardless of this range limitation. But like I said, hopefully that bug has been dealt with. This one, you can train dudes here. And then this one keeps my capital free of aging and unrest. Looking at the rest of this here, Dominion conflict bonus -2. So this is kind of a counter for the fact that I'm encouraged to build more temples, because temples boost your Dominion, but I have a conflict penalty. In practice, that means that high Dominion score is more important for Ind than for other nations. And then Astral bonus +1. Dominion hides province ownership is kind of a awkward ability. It just messes with how the map looks. So what I will be doing is I will be taking advantage of those extra points that I get from being able to take Turmoil to take a triple pretender. There are 3 choices for triple pretender. We've got the Trimarty of Destruction. We've got, maybe there's only 2, and some of the other one is for a different. Oh yeah, no. Here's the Meter Child, and then the Tridevi of Prosperity. She only costs 250, but I don't like the paths on her as much, so I will be going with the Trimarty of Destruction. And let's go ahead and take that Turmoil. Heat 1 means it's not too expensive to go up to Heat 3. And the result is, while this says income -19%, it's actually going to be much less than that, because in my capital it's effectively income -1%. And these guys, all 3 of them will have Astral, Death, and Nature, and 4 hands. The one that you see here is a perfectly capable Awake Expander, and so I'm basically going to have an Awake Expander while having 2 researchers at home, and then later on I'll be able to do combat-y things with the other guys as well. Looking at the rest of what we're going to do, one thing that I didn't mention earlier, but is an important perk is that all of the troops that you see here automatically bless themselves. And what I've found to be the most effective in terms of initial expansion is to take the Stygian Skin Bless. With that, your troops are going to have 18 protection, which is enough to basically not get hurt by your lion tribe or wolf tribe or any of that crap. So that'll let me expand pretty effectively on top of having the Wake Expander. And then I'm just going to round this out and get as good of scales as I can. Which for me, I'm a sucker for luck. It combos well with this Turmoil, and I'm going to pay for that by taking some Sloth and 1 point of Drain. I thought hard about taking the score of Drain back and paying for it instead in another scale, but taking Sloth 3 hurts my mage recruitment too much. Taking Luck 2 instead of Luck 3 is a noticeable drop off, and same thing with Growth versus Growth 2 versus Growth 3, because it compounds. We want Nature 4 because that means that she's going to have Nature 2 and can therefore personal regen herself. With those points, I'm going to take Poison Resist, Low Light Vision. I have the pass for Solar Eclipse, so I can drop that as a neat trick. And then I'll just take Resilient for the last one. I've played around with these points a lot to try to see if there's basically a way that I could swing a 4th Astral Point, which comes with a 5th Astral Point. Unfortunately, I haven't found a good way to do it, because then if I try to pump this up to 7, I'm at minus 41 and each scale costs 40. So I'm stuck bumping up one of these again, but those again go to minus 45. So it's like I can't take Nature 4 and also take Astral 4 because I'm literally 1 point short. Like I would do this, or maybe even bump one of those up to 5, but having to sacrifice 2 scales is just too big a price to pay. So this is what I'm going to be sticking with. We'll have 3 Pretenders, so we can rush out of the gate early on with expansion and extra research, and the drain hurts, but we'll be able to mitigate that with some of the spells in Thaumaturgy, as well as if we stumble onto a site that just naturally increases magic. So we'll see where things go. Overall, I'm feeling pretty good about this. And with that, just need a name. Now, naming a 3-part Pretender is interesting because the 3 parts don't show up in the same order as you type them in here. The first part shows up last, so we're going to be Money for Nothing and Cannibals for Free. And then, as you can expect, we'll have a bunch of Dire Straits references, and it'll be a good time. So, with that, thanks for joining me on this adventure, and I'll see you on turn 1.